Welcome to the Very Basic Animated Guide, Introduction to D&D 5th Edition. Dungeons & Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game where you actually roll dice and you read actual books in order to play it. It's a pretty old game that's changed quite a bit over the 45 years that it has been kicking around, with its newest incarnation being dubbed the 5th Edition, or 5e for short. Generally speaking, Dungeons & Dragons takes place in fantasy settings, with the common one being this place called the Forgotten Realms. However, depending on what your dungeon master or the guy that is in charge of actually running the game wants to do, you can modify the setting to be futuristic, neolithic, apocalyptic, or basically anything the group finds interesting. D&D is not a game where one side wins per se, it's more about doing interesting things with the group and creating an interactive story that everyone enjoys being a part of. Now, in order to actually play the game, assuming your Dungeon Master decides to play traditional Dungeons & Dragons, you, the player, only really needs the 5e's Player's Handbook, also known as the PHB. The other player books, like Xanathar's Guide, Volo's Guide, are optional for those that want to invest more of their time and money into this hobby. Also, you need to print out a character sheet. If everyone at the table is pinched for money, well, let's just say that there are always online resources that you can tap to help you with that. With the Player's Handbook in hand, you now have actual homework to read. Yeah, and this is where the stereotype for D&D players come in, because you do have to actually invest a lot or a bit of your free time before even playing the game in order to do anything when the session starts. But who cares if you're having fun with your friends or random strangers? And also, hopefully someone at the table actually has previous experience, so the session will go smoothly and everyone knows what to do. But if no one at the table knows what to do, well, hopefully this video gives you some very basic pointers. Alright, here comes the core elements in understanding the game. It's time to look at the character sheet. There are 6 main stats on the left side of the character sheet: Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Wisdom, Intelligence, and Charisma. If you come from video games or other tabletop games, these stats may look familiar, and it's basically what it says on the tin. So very quickly now, strength is how big and strong your muscles are. Dexterity is how nimble and fast you can do certain actions that require agility and skill to perform. Constitution determines how much you can endure, how long you can go on for, and how healthy your body is. It's important for those who don't want to die. Intelligence is how big and smart your brain is. Wisdom is for people who have good hunches, capable of reading the situation. Charisma is to understand how to be cool and sociable and allows you to make friends, or you could just be hot. These 6 main stats are known as ability scores. Ability score modifiers come in even numbers, with the lowest ability score number being 0 and the highest 20, with the modifiers ranging from -5 to +5. Now let's talk about the skills of D&D. They are connected to one of the 6 ability scores and serve to give additional modifiers to specific situations that you may encounter. They are to the right of your ability scores, and they have brackets that tell you which ability score modifiers they use. An example of skills being used is when you are trying to sneak around and your DM requires a stealth check, which is usually your dexterity plus proficiency bonus if you have proficiency in that skill. If you do not have proficiency in that skill, then you simply roll with your ability score modifier that the skill is connected with, and that's it. So I mentioned proficiency, but what is a proficiency bonus or modifier? Well, a proficiency bonus is basically the number that you add to anything that you're proficient in except for armor proficiency. The bonuses increases as you level up, so it's essentially just another positive bonus that helps you out. Now it's time to talk about saving throws. A lot of things have ability checks or saving throws that you need to pass, like trying to pick a lock, to jump over a trap, or to not get screwed by some magic. Spells with a spell DC force the target of the spell to roll to try to beat the associated difficulty class, or DC, in order to not get affected by whatever the spell does. The same with traps and their associated DC. The class that you choose determines which ability check you get to add your proficiency bonus to, which is similar to skill checks, except that backgrounds, story elements, race, and class usually give you more skills that you can be proficient in rather than a few that your class gives you for ability checks. Initiative basically means to roll a 20-sided die and add your dexterity modifier to it. This determines when you act in a round of combat. So when your dungeon master says roll for initiative, roll your d20. Now it's time to talk about dying in D&D. Hit points or HP represent how much damage you can take. If you drop to 0, then you fall unconscious and you make death saving throws on your turn, which is a d20 with no modifiers, and you have to roll a 10 or above in order to get a success. 3 successes and you don't die, but you're still unconscious. 3 failures and you die and you have to start over. If you get healed when you are dying, you immediately get back up and all of your death saves are reset. Temporary hit points are basically a time-sensitive extra layer of blood that you can shed without worrying too much about it, although they kinda suck because they don't stack and they don't save you from rolling death saves. After a long day of hard work, it's time to talk about resting in D&D. A short rest is a 1-hour downtime when you and your party don't do anything and you can expend hit dice to heal. When hit dice are used to heal, you add your constitution modifier to the roll. Hit dice are class dependent, and they are the dice that you roll when gaining levels to increase your total max hit points. The number of hit dice any player has is always equal to their level. Long rests take 8 hours, and you regain all of your hit points and half of your used hit dice at the end of the 8-hour period. If, however, it is interrupted, then you have to restart the 8 hours of resting to gain any benefits. It's a good idea to always wear something that you like in real life, but in Dungeons & Dragons, it's better to stay alive, and it's time to talk about Armour. Armor class is basically the number that you need to roll or get higher in order to hurt something, someone, or to break an inanimate object like a door. Player characters and some enemies can wear armor and use shields that increase their armor class, or AC. It's always a good idea to use armor that you are proficient in, so a normal wizard, for example, cannot use heavy armor with a shield and also cast spells, unfortunately. So now let's look at page 145 of the PHB to see the basic armor equipment that is available to you. We talked about your defensive capabilities, now it's time to talk about your offense. Attacking. Attacking things usually means killing them, and killing things is a long-honored tradition in gaming, so it is no surprise that D&D, being the living fossil that it is, dedicates a lot of pages to special ways you can kill your enemies. But for the purposes of this guide, let's focus on the bread and butter essentials of murder. In order to attack, you first need to make sure that you are in range of the enemy, then proceed to roll a d20 plus any modifiers to see if you land a hit. For example, if you are a mighty paladin of goodliness, and you have a giant honking greatsword, you rightfully need to slay filthy goblins that are in front of you, so you need to roll a d20 plus your strength modifier plus proficiency modifier. And if the sum is equal or higher to the AC of the stinking goblin, then you get to roll for damage. A greatsword does 2d6 slashing damage, so you just need to roll 2d6 plus your strength modifier to give you the amount of blood you just spilled. So, to know the damage types and attributes of the weapons, please look at page 149 of PHB. Rolling is something you always do in D&D. It is a dice-based game after all, so it's always a good idea to roll when you have advantage rather than disadvantage. Advantage and disadvantage usually comes into play on the DM's call. If it is a foggy day, your DM might give you a disadvantage to any ranged attack. If you have flanking rules, then having a teammate on the opposite side of the enemy you are attacking will give you advantage. Advantage means you roll twice and you take the highest roll. Disadvantage means you roll twice and you take the lowest roll. Advantage and disadvantage do not stack, and if both conditions are present, then they will cancel each other out, and you roll normally. For example, one advantage and a trillion disadvantage will give you a normal roll, and vice versa. Speed is how far your character can go in a single turn, usually calculated in feet, and if you are playing on a grid, then it's usually 5 feet per square. If you use your action to dash, then you get double what your normal speed is. So if you dash with 30 feet of movement, then you can move 60 feet that turn. If you are somewhat familiar with games, you know that leveling up means killing a bunch of stuff with disregard to the ecosystem of morals will give you rewards such as loot, or by becoming stronger with EXP and leveling up in bursts. You get to do quests as well that can help you get stronger. Yeah, so D&D is a role-playing game, but in order for it to function as it does, you kind of have to just not question why your character gets bursts of improvement to their abilities rather than gradual increases, and some other weird gaming mechanics that are implemented in order to streamline this experience. But in the player's handbook, it tells you the goodies you get for surviving to this level of your class, and unlike other video games, you don't always get improvements to your core stats or ability scores, only when it says ability score improvement. However, you will always get more hit points per level. Alright, everyone, I think that basically sums up almost all of the basics of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I hope you guys could comprehend everything, could understand everything while I said my words properly. Hopefully this helps you understand what to do with your character sheet, and remember that even if you don't follow all the rules strictly, as long as everyone is having fun at the session, then it doesn't really matter, because Dungeons & Dragons is a lot more of a social gathering in many cases than it is a game. So I think it's good to keep in mind that you're there for fun, you're there to enjoy yourself, enjoy the people and the company and your friends after, maybe you guys didn't play for a long time and want a briefer. That's why you watch this video. Well, anyways, seeing a little fun. I hope you guys who watched this far to this very basic guide enjoy the video as much as I like drawing the goofy stuff you see on screen. Hope to catch you guys next time. So until then, goodbye.